Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Anima Possession, the hidden psychological force behind obsession, emotional chaos, and the illusion of love. Why does a man sometimes lose himself completely in a relationship? Why does admiration turn into obsession, connection into confusion, and love into something that feels almost unreal? To understand this, we must step beyond surface-level psychology and enter the profound depths of Jungian thought, where the human psyche is not merely a collection of thoughts, but a living, symbolic system shaped by forces far older and deeper than conscious awareness. At the center of this phenomenon lies a concept introduced by Carl Jung, the anima, the inner feminine image within the male unconscious. This is not simply a metaphor, nor is it a poetic exaggeration. It is a psychological reality, an archetypal presence embedded within the psyche, formed through both personal experience and the deeper layer Jung called the collective unconscious. The anima, the soul image within. In Jungian psychology, every man carries within him an unconscious feminine counterpart, the anima. She is not a real woman, but rather an inner image of womanhood, shaped by early emotional experiences, maternal imprints, cultural symbols, and archetypal patterns inherited across humanity. The anima represents emotion, intuition, sensitivity, creativity, the bridge between conscious mind and unconscious depth. When integrated, she becomes a source of emotional richness, imagination, and psychological balance. She allows a man to feel deeply without being overwhelmed, to connect without losing himself. But when she is not integrated, when she remains unconscious, she does not disappear. She becomes autonomous. And this is where the phenomenon of anima possession begins. What is anima possession? Anima possession occurs when the unconscious feminine, the anima, overpowers the conscious ego, distorting perception, amplifying emotions, and projecting inner fantasies onto external reality. In this state, a man is no longer relating to a woman as she truly is. He is relating to his own unconscious image, projected outward. He does not see her. He sees what she represents. This is why the experience feels so intense, so magnetic, and often so irrational. The illusion of perfect love. One of the most striking features of anima possession is idealization. A man under the influence of his anima may perceive a woman as perfect, divine, or uniquely special, feel an immediate, almost mystical connection, believe he has found the one without truly knowing her, experience emotional highs that feel transcendent. But this love is not grounded in reality. It is a projection of the psyche. The woman becomes a screen upon which his inner world is displayed. She carries his desires, his unmet emotional needs, his longing for wholeness, his unconscious fantasies. And because these projections originate from deep psychological layers, they feel more real than reality itself. The dangerous shift from worship to withdrawal. However, anima possession is not stable. It is inherently volatile. What begins as intense admiration often transforms into emotional instability, mood swings, jealousy, irrational anger, sudden withdrawal. Why? Because reality eventually begins to contradict the projection. The real woman cannot sustain the perfection imposed upon her. She begins to reveal her individuality, her flaws, her boundaries, her autonomy. At this point, the psyche experiences a fracture, the illusion collapses, and the man, unable to reconcile the difference between fantasy and reality, may withdraw emotionally, become distant or cold, ghost without explanation, feel overwhelmed or suffocated. This is not necessarily cruelty or manipulation. It is often psychological disintegration. The ego collapse, the scary stage. At its peak, anima possession can lead to what might be called an ego collapse. In this stage, the man loses clarity of thought. His emotions dominate his decisions. He feels internally chaotic and fragmented. He may experience anxiety, confusion, or even despair. Jung described this as being overwhelmed by the unconscious. The ego, The center of conscious identity is no longer in control. Instead, the psyche is being driven by forces it does not understand. This is why the experience can feel spiritual, fated, or even haunting. Because it is not just psychological, it is symbolic. The role of the shadow anima possession is rarely isolated. It is deeply connected to another key Jungian concept, the shadow. The shadow contains all the parts of the self that have been rejected, suppressed, or denied. When a man is anima possessed, his shadow often emerges alongside the anima repressed emotions, intensify insecurity's surface. Fear of abandonment or engulfment becomes active. This creates a paradox. He longs for connection, yet fears losing himself within it. This tension often results in push-pull dynamics, emotional inconsistency, and relational instability. Projection. The core mechanism. At the heart of anima possession lies projection. Projection is the process by which unconscious content is attributed to another person. Instead of recognizing feelings as internal, the psyche externalizes them. In anima possession, the inner feminine is projected onto a woman. She becomes the embodiment of his inner world. He reacts not to her actions, but to his projections. This is why small behaviors can trigger intense reactions. Emotional responses seem disproportionate. The relationship feels larger than life. But the truth is this: the intensity does not come from the relationship. It comes from the unconscious psyche. Why he runs: the fear of devourment. One of the most misunderstood aspects of anima possession is sudden withdrawal. After intense closeness, the man may feel overwhelmed, suffocated, emotionally consumed. Jung referred to this as a fear of devourment, the unconscious fear of being swallowed by the feminine. This fear arises because the anima represents depth, emotion, and dissolution of ego boundaries. The ego resists losing control. The psyche oscillates between desire and fear, so he retreats. Not because the connection was meaningless, but because it became too psychologically powerful to sustain. The feminine perspective, misinterpretation. From the outside, this behavior is often misinterpreted. It may look like love bombing followed by withdrawal, emotional inconsistency, lack of commitment, toxic behavior. While these interpretations are sometimes valid, Jungian psychology suggests a deeper layer. This is not always manipulation. It is often unconscious possession. Understanding this does not justify harmful behavior, but it reframes it. It shifts the narrative from blame to psychological insight. The path to integration. Individuation. For Jung, the ultimate goal was not to eliminate the anima, but to integrate her. This process is part of what he called individuation, the journey toward becoming a whole, balanced self. Integration involves recognizing projections, differentiating fantasy from reality, developing emotional awareness, confronting the shadow, establishing a stable ego. When the anima is integrated, she no longer possesses. She becomes a guide, a source of creativity and depth, a bridge to the unconscious. The man no longer seeks completion through another person. He becomes internally whole. The alchemy of transformation. Jung often used the metaphor of alchemy to describe psychological transformation. In the context of anima possession, the initial attraction is the prima materia, raw material. The emotional chaos is the nigredo, dark phase. Awareness is the beginning of transformation. Integration is the gold, psychological wholeness. This process is not easy. It requires confrontation with the deepest parts of the self, but it is also where true growth occurs. Final reflection. Anima possession is not merely a concept. It is an experience, one that can feel overwhelming, intoxicating, and deeply confusing. It reveals a fundamental truth about human psychology. We are not always in control of our emotions, our attractions, or our behaviors. Much of what we experience is shaped by forces beneath consciousness. But Jung's message is not one of helplessness. It is one of awareness. Because the moment you begin to see these patterns, the moment you recognize projection, illusion, and unconscious influence, You begin to reclaim control. You move from being possessed to becoming conscious. And in that shift, the psyche begins to transform.